Hi, it's Mr. Seth with CaribCultura, and today we are going to do a quick video and show you guys how I use my lattice. Lattice is the actual scientific manufacturer term, but I just say tart mold, or tart cover, or tart tapa, and that's what we're going to do today. The lattice that I have is a plastic lattice, and I have multiple of them because after a while they start to give away, like you can see, and they start to crack and stuff like that. So this is actually one of my no longer used lattice, but I think I just bring it just so I could show you guys what the lattice look like. Okay, so the top part is smooth, the bottom part has these holes in it, so that will determine like which side you put a lattice on. Obviously, when you are putting the dough over the lattice, you can put it over the bumpy side, right? So the products that you're going to need is a lattice, parchment paper, a smooth surface, and a rolling pin. And obviously the tart. I'm going to have all the instructions in the description box below. And I hope you guys enjoy this video.
All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and get started. So step one is put your gloves on because, we want to make sure that we are taking safety precautions when it comes to food handlers, procedures, and putting on gloves will also ensure that we keep the area nice and clean, that we don't have any germs because I'm a germaphobe and kind of OCD. So, yeah. So what we're going to be doing right now is we're taking a piece of dough. Now, this dough has to be mixed properly and blended properly. So what happens is when you put a lot of raw ingredients together, it sometimes can be a little crummy. So you want to make sure that you are utilizing dough that is 100% smooth. Okay, that's very important. Why? Because you're going to be transferring this dough on this plastic lattice and you don't want it to like completely break apart when you are performing that process. So if your dough is breaking apart, it ain't ready. So keep rolling it some more. In this particular step, what I'm doing is I'm just kneading it a little bit more because the dough itself is not as blended as I would like it. And so sometimes if the dough starts to separate, you want to make sure that you blend it evenly. Because once we spread it out on the parchment paper, and as you can see, I'm utilizing this parchment paper because it allows me to glide and twist and turn the dough so that my body can remain in the same position so I'm not constantly having to move. So it's just moving the dough itself without having to actually lift it up. And it's kind of taking the role of like a lazy Susan. Okay, so I'm able to stay, especially this is great is if you operate in a space where you don't have a lot of counter space and you want to be able to maximize that space. So utilizing parchment paper is like literally genius. It has saved me so much headache just utilizing the parchment paper, and then that way you flatten the dough itself on the paper and then it allows you the flexibility of maneuvering that dough. Now you want to make sure that throughout this process that the dough doesn't separate. What you want to do is make it as smooth as possible and as even as possible. It kind of reminds me of like, vacuuming or mowing the lawn. You want to make sure that you have every corner as even as possible. If you roll the rolling pin on one area and it immediately makes another area uneven, then you want to make sure you're evening out that area. Now, I'm not saying that the entire dough has to be level, but I'm saying the main center area where you're going to be putting the lattice down, you want to make sure that it is as level as possible. Because the worst thing you want to happen is for half your dough to be higher than the other side because it's going to make it a lot difficult with the lattice. Now, because I am flattening the dough over the parchment paper and I'm constantly going back over with the rolling pin, it is making the dough a little bit excessive. So it's okay to kind of like take some of the excess off the sides. Now in this step, you guys see that I'm putting just a little bit of flour on there, and I'm doing that mainly because we're going to be putting this plastic lattice on a sticky dough, and we want it to be able to transfer easily. We don't want the lattice to stick to it. We don't want our dough to break up. We want to get this done in one shot. Now, don't put too much flour because you don't want it to change the consistency. So right now we're putting the lattice down with a bumpy side down, we're pushing it into the dough, and we're pressing down harder. And then we lift the parchment paper with the lattice and we turn it over on its flat side, taking a rolling pin and just rubbing the top over it. And what this is doing is it is separating the dough, and it is using that raised side as a cutter. Okay, this is going to make it so easy to be able to get the dough off of the lattice. So as you can see, we're gently taking off the parchment paper, and you see how seamless that was, how seamless that transition was to get it off. So now this step, what we're going to do is lift the lattice from underneath the dough gently, okay? And it's okay if like some excess dough fall off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to punch out all the holes that are in the lattice, okay? And this part is going to come out so nice. And this also will let you see if your dough is uneven, because you're going to see some squares fatter than the others, and you don't want that. You want to make sure that they all generally are the same size, and it'll at least let you know that yes, you did a great job rolling out the dough, and that is pretty much proportion around the lattice. So as you do this step, some of the excess dough is going to come off. It's fine, just be gentle with it and just take it off and add it to the pile. And then you're going to grab your tart that already has the filling in there, and you're going to position the lattice over it. There you go. All right, and then you're going to gently, you might have to tap it a little bit, but you're going to just gently lift it up, and you're going to see that the dough just falls seamless over the tart. So nice and smooth, so nice and smooth. This is going to guarantee that you're successful 99.9% of the time. I mean, I rarely have any issues unless maybe I trip or I wasn't paying attention. And so we want to make sure that we get rid of the excess dough, and it looks so nice and so pretty, just like how I love my tart to look. And voila. So in this step, what I do is I put my lattice over just a little off-centered, because what I like to do is take off some of the excess and put my own design on there. So if any of you are familiar with my CaribCultura tarts, you know that my signature is a hibiscus flower. Why? Because the hibiscus flowers remind me of my childhood. Growing up in the Virgin Islands, my grandmother always had our garden filled with hibiscus, and we had huge bushes of hibiscus, and they always had flowers on them, like always. It wasn't until I grew up later that I learned that the hibiscus flowers only last for that day. So early in the morning they bloom, and then by sunset they die and fall off. But growing up, I just remember every time our bush would be filled with hibiscus flowers, but it never really dawned on me as a child that they die daily. So they come out, they bloom, they show their glory, and then they die. It wasn't until I got older I was like, wow, and I learned that, and I started to have my own garden and my own hibiscus flowers. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I decorate all my tarts with hibiscus flowers. That's my signature flower because it reminds me of my childhood. It reminds me of my grandmother. So here you have a pineapple tart ready to go in the oven. If you guys actually try this method using the parchment paper, I want to know how it came out. So please let me know in the comments if you tried it, what you thought about this tutorial, and if you were successful. And thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and like, comment. Let me know if this video was able to help you. Let me know if you ever used a lattice before. Yes, I know that back in the day, people used to roll out the dough, and our grandparents used to hand cut each strip and then lay them. Yeah, my grandmother used to do all of that, all kind of fancy thing. But guess what? One and done. One and done.
So I hope you guys were able to find some value in this, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.